Nothing is more ordinary than a hobbit, particularly Bilbo Baggins from J.R.R. Tolkien's novel, The Hobbit. On this day, Bilbo Baggins sat in front of his home smoking his pipe, enjoying the ordinariness of his hobbit life in a hole in the ground. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, but a hobbit home, full of good food, a warm hearth, and all the comforts of home. A simple life, nestled among the lush green hills of the Shire. Everything was neat and in order and as it should be. Bilbo Baggins was always on time and respectable because nothing unexpected ever happened until a certain great wizard named Gandalf came to town. I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure. Spontaneity and adventure were not what Bilbo Baggins had in mind for his life. Adventure, Bilbo states, nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things. They make you late for dinner. But it was unknown to Bilbo that Gandalf does not hear the answer, no thanks, even if coming from a polite hobbit. So Gandalf marks Bilbo's house as the next meeting place for the group of ragtag dwarves to begin planning their next adventure. It's a while into this evening before Bilbo Baggins begins to understand why his home was chosen for this meeting. Gandalf has chosen Bilbo, carving into his door a mark which anointed him as the last team member for the adventure. And much to the dwarves' uncertainty and caution, Gandalf has chosen this small, hairy-footed hobbit for the task of slaying a dragon and taking back the ancient city of Drake, which had been plundered from the dwarves long ago. However, while Gandalf is confident in Bilbo, Bilbo doubts his ability to embark on such a risky journey. He questions his size, his lack of courage, and most of all, he fears leaving his comfortable hobbit hole for a journey he knew would challenge him like he's never been challenged before. With only a promise from Gandalf that if he does come back, he will never be the same, Bilbo Baggins is faced with a difficult decision accompanying any great adventure. Will he commit and be faithful to the call? In Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 4 through 14, we read of Jeremiah's call to ministry. Much like our call narratives as pastors and church leaders, Jeremiah's response to God's call is all but willing. He doubts. His exact response to God's calling to make him a prophet is, "I am too young and inexperienced." I'm not sure about this room, but I have a feeling there's not a single person in this room who has not had that feeling at some point in this journey called ministry. Yet Jeremiah's disbelief in himself for this high calling is overshadowed by God's thoughts and God's voice. Because the main character in Jeremiah's call narrative is not Jeremiah, it is God. And it is God who believes he can speak most accurately about what Jeremiah can and cannot do. I love how God begins this conversation with Jeremiah. He goes back to the beginnings of Jeremiah's life and he says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you." It is in this moment that God is leading Jeremiah to take a step back from all the fear and the doubt that he has in himself, to see his life the way God sees, a bigger picture of formation. See, God has been forming and shaping Jeremiah all throughout his journey to be a prophet. So when Jeremiah intersects with his doubt and fear, God quickly interrupts with full confidence in Jeremiah. "You will go to all whom I tell you, and you will speak all of what I tell you to." There is no moment of pause here where we hear a "here am I, send me" response from Jeremiah. Jeremiah moves quickly from doubt and disbelief directly to the feeling of God's hands on his lips, preventing him from speech. God anoints him, touching his lips, and gives him the commission and benediction which will shape his entire ministry from this point forward. He will pluck up and pull down. He will destroy and overthrow. He will build and he will plant. There is no question this ministry will be a difficult task. Then the story takes a shift in pace, and God takes a break from talking to Jeremiah to asking Jeremiah this one important and unique question: what do you see? This is the ultimate question for the preacher. As a prophet, Jeremiah is called not only to be the messenger of God, but to see beyond what may seem ordinary, to find a deeper meaning and message for God's people. God has just told Jeremiah all that he sees in him, and now wants to know, what does Jeremiah see? At first, Jeremiah sees the branch of an almond tree. Now, there's nothing too extraordinary about this sight, and in the Message translation, it even says that Jeremiah sees a walking stick. But what matters most is the unique response of God. For God says that this almond branch will be a symbol to you that I am watching. I will make sure my word comes true. And the wordplay here in Hebrew would have been clear for Jeremiah because the word for almond sounds like the word for watching. So in essence, God is saying that he will keep his word, that he will be with Jeremiah. God sees, and God will see him through. See, Jeremiah sees what is ordinary, and God has him take a step back once again to reveal to him his extraordinary message behind what may be seen as merely a walking stick. A second time, God turns to Jeremiah and he says, Jeremiah, what do you see? This time, Jeremiah sees a boiling pot tilted away from the north. God again interrupts this seemingly ordinary sight with an extraordinary message as he reveals the events to occur as a result of the people of Judah turning from God to idolatry. See, at the beginning of Jeremiah's call to ministry, God has chosen to ask him this one question: what do you see? And as all of us in this room know, ministry comes with an assortment of challenges. We are taught early on as students that the church is not perfect, that ministry is messy, and that being a minister is not a light or easy task. Jeremiah's faithfulness to God led him to experience rejection, loneliness, and depression throughout his ministry as he brought the difficult message of God to the people of Judah whom he deeply loved. It's at some of these darkest moments of Jeremiah's life that he cursed the day he was born and wished God would never have created him. It was in these moments that I believe Jeremiah could not see. And just as I am confident that many, if not all of the ministers in this room have doubted God's call on us in ministry or in the midst of ministry, whether we feel like we are too young and inexperienced or too old and irrelevant, I am also confident that there have been moments for many in this room where in the thick of ministry, we could not see. After officiating funeral after funeral, seeing people in our flock pass away, we begin to feel the death toll ringing on our souls. After continual disagreements of vision and mission with our staff, we begin to wonder how the church can move forward without unity in the leadership. After complaint after numerous complaint from parishioners about items and situations that we deem petty, we feel as though we continually serve an unresponsive and an unappreciative people. As students, we often question frequently if we are in the right place or wonder what God may have next for us. We compare our ministry and our church and our call to others, and we wonder if we are successful at all. There are moments in life and in ministry when we cannot see. One of these moments came for me last year. I took a youth ministry position one that I took with enthusiasm and excitement, a part-time position while I was still in seminary, and it's my first position where I wasn't an intern. And so I was very excited to have like a title and have my name in the bulletin and whatnot, and took it with a lot of excitement and joy. I even called it my dream job over and over again. I was a bit naive because quickly into my experience, I began to feel hurt and hopelessness due to different interaction I would have with staff and differences of theology and philosophy of ministry. I was beginning to feel like the job was more of a dread instead of a dream. It was difficult to wake up in the morning. It was difficult to have the energy to plan events, to minister to students and parents and volunteers. I remember on one of my last days before I left, sitting in Starbucks in public, tears just streaming down my face, and people looking on. Obviously that didn't bother me, but in my mind I was thinking, I have no joy in being a minister anymore. I could not see. I could not see hope in my current situation. I could not see why God had allowed me to get to this point. I could not see how I could recover from this. I lost confidence in myself and I doubted my call to ministry. It's as though my story had gone full circle, and here I was at the beginning again with Jeremiah, looking up to God and saying, I am too young and inexperienced, and maybe a better job would suit me. Yet as God only knows how, he ministered to me when I could not see. And as God promised Jeremiah, so God kept his promise to me to be with me. And when I could not see, God brought people in my life who listened to me, who cried with me, and who could do what I could not. They took a step back from the situation, and they saw for me. Countless people would come up to me, and they would say, Katie, I know you cannot see it now, but I cannot wait to see you on the other side of this. I hope that everyone in this room has people in your life who can see for you. For it was when I could not see the story, I could not see formation, I could not see how God could shape anything good from the mess that my life had become, that they held hope for me. What do we do when we cannot see? I often wonder as I read Jeremiah, what would have been his reaction and response if he would have known the entire story at the beginning of his call. If Jeremiah would have known that in chapter 20, he would be saying, cursed be the day I was born, let it not be blessed. Or if he would have known what the Voice translation calls days of painful change that lay in the future for God's people. If he would have known all these things, would maybe he have resisted God's call a little stronger in chapter 1? God had assured Jeremiah that he would make him strong, that he would make him a fortified city, a bronze wall, an iron pillar. But there were times when he certainly did not feel like a bronze wall. And there were times when he did not feel God's promised presence. When he could not see, God saw for Jeremiah. And when he did not believe in himself, God believed in Jeremiah. And God's confidence overshadowed his doubt. See, Bilbo Baggins was not given the entire story at the beginning of his call. If Gandalf would have told him about the slimy trolls, the massive orcs, the giant spiders, and the cliff monsters that he would encounter on the journey, I can guarantee you he would not have gone sprinting from his home the next morning to enlist on the adventure. Even countless times throughout the journey, the dwarves doubted Bilbo. All the time. And Bilbo even doubted himself. But Gandalf remained confident in Bilbo Baggins, the small, hairy-footed hobbit from the Shire. Gandalf knew him, and he knew what he could do. God knew Jeremiah, and he knew what he could do. as pastors, professors, students, church leaders, as those called by God to be faithful and committed to the call of ministry. As we go into the unforeseen future, fully aware that the journey of ministry is not and will not be an easy one. As we go, may we know deep within our souls that we have been called, consecrated, and anointed by a God who was forming us from the beginning and is forming us still today. God knows us, and He knows what we can do. He is confident when we have no confidence. And it is when we cannot see that He is a God who sees. Amen.